After 45 days of being out, High Guard has already kicked the bucket and is being shut down and releasing their final update after having the final showcase of the Game Awards last year. Now, I don't really know much about this game, I'll be honest. So I'm not really going to talk about why it failed or what my opinions are on the game because I really don't have one. I haven't played it. I saw it during the reveal trailer on the Game Awards and thought, okay, this just looks like a game that I'm not particularly going to be into because I'm not into the hero shooter genre. I'm not into like that style of game. But I really wanted to use this to kind of piggyback on a take that I've had a few months ago, I believe, where it just seems like nowadays no game really survives in this market anymore, man. Like these big publishers get these studios and they put a big budget on a game, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then make it live service, free to play, whatever, and the game just fails because they had too many ambitions. They had a clear, like, long track journey for this game, so they put all in on this game, and the game fails, and then the studio disappears, and then that's that. I mean, this is like a Concord situation. This is Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League situation. Like these games just pop out. Saints Row, the Saints Row reboot is another one. These games they put like games just be these big publishers be putting these time constraints, these these uh these restraints on these developers. 'Cause I really don't blame the developers for these problems. It's usually the big publishers wanting to put very predatory stuff, which wasn't really the case for High Guard in this situation. High Guard, I feel like, just didn't wasn't able to stand out, and for that reason, it failed. It decided to make itself put itself in a genre that's pretty freaking saturated. It's a very saturated genre of games, and they didn't do enough to stand out from the rest. So no one just paid attention. No one paid attention to it. It didn't reach the goals it needed to. It didn't make enough money fast enough that after paying, putting how much money into the game, and then it just fails. And then as next thing you know, the publisher's gone, and that's that. All these workers get laid off. They don't have a job anymore. All because the publishers were putting so many restraints and deadlines and this and that. I feel like that's the main reason why games like these fail is because the publishers put so much into the game that usually the players don't like. It's really not the developers' fault, and then they put so many time constraints and deadlines on these games, these developers, and they just don't have time to to see their vision through and make a product that a lot of people are going to like. But yeah, it just seems nowadays that you can never trust a game that's live service anymore because the game after a month is shut down, and then everyone forgets about it, and then nobody can play it anyway because the game servers are down and it's a multiplayer game. And I don't even think after like looking at the gameplay of High Guard just it didn't look bad at all. I mean, I feel like that's definitely a game that had it came out later and they put more work into it, or had it came out before this genre got saturated like it has, I think it could have been successful. But nowadays, like you said, if the game doesn't hit on the first month or two, the game is just completely shut down. And I think that's a very terrible state for games to be in because I could definitely see High Guard here at about 6 months being a great game. Like not maybe not a great game, but a decent game that people could get into. But it didn't have time. It didn't have. I had that showcase at the end of the Game Awards, would put a lot of expectation on it because usually they say that for the best games, and then come to find out, like people just hated on it for whatever reason, just to hate on it. I mean, not a lot of people just hated on it because they found something that everyone agreed with and that they thought sucked, and so they just piled on and decided to have the same takes, and then that got more people into not even trying it. I just didn't try it, like I said, because it's just not a game that I enjoy. I don't really play multiplayer games anymore, so just to having a multiplayer game in general, I'm gonna have to really enjoy it to even give it a shot, or look very interesting for me to get a shot. But it just, like I said, it's a genre I feel like is very saturated. But a lot of people gave it hate just because it was the last game on the Game Awards and it just didn't look good. And then they also gave it high expectations, so when people did play it, they couldn't see past its flaws, and they expected it to be a huge, like, amazing game, and it just wasn't meant to be a huge game on release. And like I said, I think if they had more time to cook, it probably could have been a very, very good game. It's just a shame, man, because there's you see a lot of these games like this where this team puts together a pretty decent game, but maybe the publishers make them rush too fast, and the publishers put so much money into the game, huge budgets, and then the game just falls apart immediately, and it causes the studio to get shut down. I mean, this studio could have made something great later in their future, but now they'll never have the chance because surely, if they haven't already, they're going to get shut down. It's going to be another Concord situation, except it just didn't happen as fast. It just sucks, man. It really does because used to this never happens. Like, a game would come out, it wouldn't have a huge budget on it. I mean, some games did, like the big ones, but back in the day, like a lot of studios never shut down because usually the games either they didn't have a big budget on it, so even if they didn't make a lot of sales, they still had plenty of budget to make another game. Or if the game, even if it was kind of mediocre in sales, it still made a profit because it wasn't a huge budget anymore. Like, the games nowadays cost so much money, and it takes so much time to make these games nowadays because that's just, I guess, the status quo for these developers, man. Like, they want to have these games super, high res and high profile games. And in recent memory, that just hasn't been the games that have been successful. The games that have been successful have been these indie games, these games like Hollow Knight, these games like, in a way, Clair Obscur, but Clair Obscur really isn't an indie game. Games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, games like Astrobot from last year, one game of the year. Games like those, even though I'm not a huge fan of Astrobot, games like those, very low profile, not a huge budget, but very creative games that captivate people's attentions. People don't usually have high expectations for these games. I mean, Hollow Knight's the exception because Hollow Knight, the first game, did very well, and the second one did have a lot of expectation to it. But these aren't very high profile games. Like, this ain't Call of Duty. This ain't Battlefield. These are games that are very small in studio size, very very little budget. It's games that sell for around $30 to $40, and these are the games that are successful nowadays. These are the games that people play and enjoy, not the fucking games like High Guard, not the games like Concord, the games that have the huge budgets that need to hit immediately before these publishers just cut the you know cut the cord and end it early. So to me, I think that these developers and especially the publishers need to learn from these mistakes, man, because this stuff has been happening at a rapid rate in the past, half a decade. Past 5 years, games have just been coming and going. These especially these studios just be coming and going because when their games don't hit, it's the end of them, and they can't recover, and so the publishers let them go, and then now you got all these freaking game designers and developers who are probably very talented, but they were just had their hands tied on a game, and now they have nowhere to go. It just sucks, man. So yeah, once again, another case of a big budget game just falling apart within a month. I mean, this was a little bit longer than a month. I think one of the main factors is why it didn't die as more quickly is because of the Game Awards gave it a lot of publicity and stuff. But man, I hate to see how I love video games. I have my channel is based off video games, so it just pains me to see stuff like this happening, man. Because I think it just leaves a bad gaming in a bad state and a hole in gaming when just games just fall apart so quickly, man. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that High Guard deserved to die as quickly as it did? Do you think that do you agree with my take that this is just a bad direction for video game development and publishing to go, or do you think that games that don't do well should deserve to be cut short? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'm gonna end the video right here, guys. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next one. Peace.